Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has just arrived near Washington ahead of his high-stakes summit with U.S. President Donald Trump. The two leaders will meet face-to-face for the first time on Friday. Meanwhile, American businesses are bracing for the consequences of a 25% tariff hike, part of a dramatic escalation in global trade tensions. In a bold move, Japan has hit back, targeting the heart of the U.S. automotive industry, just days after Trump's announcement of sweeping tariffs on foreign car imports. This trade clash, sparked by Trump's America First agenda, aims to revitalize U.S. manufacturing by imposing hefty tariffs on imports, including a 25% tax on vehicles from key trading partners like Japan, known for its world-leading automotive sector. The goal? Reduce the U.S. trade deficit and encourage American consumers to buy domestically made cars. But the impact has rippled far beyond Washington, sparking debate among economists, industry leaders, and global allies. Japan's response has been swift and strategic, recognizing the existential threat to its auto industry, a critical pillar of its economy. Japan has launched a series of retaliatory tariffs and trade barriers. These measures hit American-made cars and vital auto parts hard, disrupting U.S. supply chains and driving up production costs. Japan's objective is clear: force the U.S. to reconsider its tariff-heavy approach by showing how damaging these policies can be for both sides. The immediate impact for American consumers is clear: higher prices. As tariffs raise the cost of vital imported components, automakers will likely pass these extra expenses on to buyers, resulting in higher prices across a range of models. This price spike could dampen demand, leading to a slowdown in sales and potentially triggering a broader downturn in the auto sector. But the pain won't stop at the dealership. U.S. automakers, who've long relied on a global supply chain to maximize efficiency, now face the challenge of rethinking their operations in the face of a volatile trade environment. The rising costs from tariffs could force companies to reconsider their sourcing strategies, risking profit margins, job losses, and even plant closures. Small and medium-sized businesses, crucial to the auto supply chain, are especially vulnerable, as they may lack the financial resilience to weather these cost hikes. This trade war isn't just about cars. It's a signal of shifting global power dynamics. Japan's assertive response marks a sharp departure from its traditionally cautious foreign policy, and other nations may soon follow suit. This could unravel decades of global cooperation, leading to a rise in protectionism that threatens to destabilize the international trade system, particularly within organizations like the WTO. Markets are already reacting with heightened volatility. Stocks tied to the automotive sector have fluctuated sharply as investors try to gauge the future of the global supply chain and corporate profits. Currency markets, too, are feeling the pressure, with the yen and dollar moving in response to shifting trade dynamics. Labor unions and workers are watching closely, bracing for job losses and diminished benefits as automakers face the tough reality of higher costs and reduced production. In regions heavily reliant on automotive manufacturing, the threat of layoffs looms large, adding pressure to policymakers to find a resolution that protects both jobs and economic stability. Politically, this trade dispute has become a hot-button issue. Critics of Trump's tariff strategy argue that it will harm domestic industries and consumers more than it helps. Supporters, however, insist that these tough measures are necessary to address long-standing trade imbalances and revitalize U.S. manufacturing. This ideological divide underscores the complexity of balancing protectionist policies with the realities of an interconnected global economy. Globally, allies and adversaries alike are keeping a close eye on the U.S.-Japan conflict, knowing that the outcomes here could set a precedent for future trade disputes. If other nations start adopting similar retaliatory measures, we could be entering an era of escalating tariffs and protectionism that threatens to disrupt the stability of global markets. Environmental concerns also come into play. The disruption to the automotive sector could delay the production and adoption of fuel-efficient and electric vehicles. Policies aimed at promoting sustainable transportation could be set back as manufacturers focus on mitigating tariff impacts, slowing progress toward environmental goals. Japan's decisive countermeasures have set the stage for a high-stakes confrontation with far-reaching consequences. The intersection of economic interests, political ideologies, and international relations creates a complex challenge that requires careful navigation. Both nations and the global economy will need to work hard to avoid the damaging fallout. As this trade war escalates, it's clear that every stakeholder, industry leaders, policymakers, workers, and consumers, will need to adapt quickly. The auto industry's intricate web of global supply chains is now at risk, with manufacturers reconsidering their sourcing strategies and production locations. Japanese automakers, in particular, could shift their focus to alternative markets in Southeast Asia, Europe, or Latin America, as the U.S. market becomes increasingly hostile. But the effects won't stop at the auto industry. Steel, electronics, and other sectors could see cascading disruptions as tariffs on auto parts ripple through global supply chains. Stock markets, traditionally viewed as a safe bet, are now in turmoil, with the automotive sector seeing sharp declines as investor confidence wavers. For American workers, especially those employed by Japanese automakers in key states like Tennessee, Kentucky, and Ohio, the impact could be devastating. Layoffs are a real possibility, and the broader economic consequences for regions reliant on auto manufacturing could be catastrophic. This trade war isn't just hurting automakers, it's hitting consumers too. Rising car prices, both for new and used vehicles, could make reliable transportation unaffordable for many American families. The increase in used car demand will likely drive up prices, making it harder for lower-income buyers to find affordable options. In response, American car manufacturers might push for government bailouts or tax breaks to offset their rising costs. But this would place more strain on taxpayers, who would be left to foot the bill for policies that harm the industry. As the U.S. grapples with this trade war, policymakers will face tough choices about whether to intervene or let market forces run their course. Diplomatic relations between the U.S. and Japan are already feeling the strain. If tensions continue, Japan may seek stronger economic ties with China or the European Union, leading to broader geopolitical shifts. Other U.S. trade partners, like Germany, South Korea, and Canada, are watching closely, knowing they may need to take similar retaliatory action if Japan's countermeasures succeed. If this trade war continues to escalate, it could lead to a global economic downturn, with multiple nations imposing tariffs and countermeasures, resulting in prolonged instability. The impact on technological innovation, especially in the automotive sector, could be severe as companies delay investments in electric vehicles and other cutting-edge technologies. The future of the global auto industry, and indeed global trade, hangs in the balance. Japan has long been at the forefront of cutting-edge automotive technology, from fuel-efficient hybrid engines and hydrogen fuel cells to autonomous driving systems. But what happens if U.S.-Japan trade relations take a turn for the worse? Collaboration between American and Japanese companies in these groundbreaking fields could suffer, and the ripple effects would be felt far and wide. Historically, joint ventures and research partnerships between these two automotive giants have sparked innovation. If these relationships are jeopardized, technological progress could slow down, weakening the global competitiveness of both nations. From a consumer's perspective, this escalating conflict might even shift brand loyalty in unexpected ways. American drivers who have long trusted Japanese cars for their reliability, fuel efficiency, and affordability might find themselves rethinking their choices, especially with rising prices. This could open the door for automakers like Hyundai, Kia, Volkswagen, or BMW to scoop up market share. On the other hand, Japanese automakers may lean into marketing strategies that highlight the long-term value and durability of their vehicles, hoping to keep consumer loyalty intact even as costs rise. But the broader economic consequences are even more pressing. Japan's Counterstrike raises alarms about the fragility of global trade agreements. Tariffs and retaliatory measures challenge the principles of free trade that have shaped international commerce for decades. If this trend continues, we could see the slow dismantling of global trade frameworks, with nations focusing on protectionism instead of cooperation. The longer this trade war drags on, the harder it will be to undo its damage. Companies already restructuring supply chains in response to tariffs might hesitate to return to previous arrangements, even if relations eventually improve. In fact, even if tariffs are lifted, the industry may never return to the way it was. Market dynamics, pricing structures, and global competitiveness could change forever. At the heart of this economic showdown is a battle between nationalism and globalization. President Trump's protectionist policies aim to bring manufacturing back to the U.S., but they're at odds with the realities of today's global supply chains. Japan's response highlights the interconnected nature of modern economies, where retaliatory actions often hurt both sides. This raises vital questions about the sustainability of economic nationalism in a world that's more interdependent than ever. Consumers, businesses, and policymakers will need to adapt quickly to these shifting realities. As the standoff continues, the decisions made by both the U.S. and Japan will shape not just the future of their automotive industries, but the trajectory of their broader economic and diplomatic relations for years to come. The global automotive industry is watching closely, waiting for any signs of de-escalation or a further escalation of tensions. The stakes are enormous, and the consequences of missteps could be dire. One thing is clear. The era of stable, predictable automotive commerce between Japan and the United States is over. This is more than just a trade dispute over cars. It represents a fundamental shift in global economic dynamics and the post-World War II trade relationship between two of the world's largest economies. With Japan pushing back against U.S. tariffs, this carefully built relationship is now under unprecedented strain, and the fallout will extend well beyond the automotive sector. One of the most immediate impacts of this trade war is on corporate decision-making. American and Japanese automakers now face a volatile environment, where long-term investments have become riskier. Both sides will need to rethink where to build manufacturing plants, how to structure supply chains, and which markets are still viable. Multinational companies thrive on predictability, and this shift is threatening to undo years of careful planning. Japanese automakers, in particular, are grappling with an existential question. Should they continue investing in the U.S. despite the tariffs, or start pulling back altogether? Toyota, Honda, and others have poured billions into building a strong presence in North America. But as tensions escalate, they may look to prioritize other markets. If Japan starts reducing exports to the U.S., the American market could become more insular, with fewer choices and greater reliance on domestic manufacturers, who may struggle to meet demand. This shift won't happen overnight, but early signs are already emerging. Japanese automakers are ramping up investments in regions like Southeast Asia, India, and parts of Europe. If this trend continues, the U.S. risks losing its status as a global automotive hub, as these emerging markets step in to fill the void left by Japan. And then there's the issue of technological innovation. Japan has been leading the charge in hybrid technology, autonomous driving systems, and next-gen fuel efficiency. But if this conflict continues, Japan may redirect its R&D efforts away from the U.S. toward more innovation-friendly regions. The implications for the global automotive industry could be huge. Breakthroughs in battery technology, hydrogen fuel cells, and self-driving vehicles might no longer be shared with American companies, leaving them at a disadvantage in the race toward electrification and sustainability. This is especially concerning as the U.S. automotive industry is already facing fierce competition from European and Chinese manufacturers. Losing access to Japan's cutting-edge technology could leave American companies scrambling to catch up, offering fewer options to consumers in the future. Meanwhile, the financial sector is feeling the pressure, as Japanese investments in the U.S. automotive market stretch beyond just manufacturing to include stocks, private equity, and financial institutions. Japan's retaliation could lead to a reduction in foreign direct investment, weakening the American economy and slowing industrial growth. Japan's own stock market is also experiencing volatility, and a prolonged trade war could force the Japanese government to intervene to protect domestic industries. This trade war is also reshaping the global energy landscape. Japan is a major consumer of oil, natural gas, and rare earth metals, critical for automotive production. If trade barriers force Japan to seek alternative suppliers, it could shift global energy flows, undermining U.S. influence over the market. And we can't ignore the political ramifications. Japan has traditionally been one of the U.S.'s most reliable allies, but escalating tensions could strain that bond. If economic relations continue to sour, Japan might reassess its foreign policy priorities and seek stronger alliances elsewhere. For American consumers, this could mean more than just higher car prices. It could result in fewer choices, increased repair costs, and a less competitive marketplace. The impact on the global shipping and logistics industry is also profound. Disruptions in trade between the U.S. and Japan will affect supply chains around the world, causing shipping costs to rise and adding more pressure to manufacturers and consumers alike. As the trade war continues, other global economic powers, like China, the EU, and South Korea, are watching closely, ready to capitalize on any opportunity to strengthen their own automotive industries. If Japan shifts its focus toward European and Asian markets, these regions could see increased investment and collaboration, further isolating the U.S. automotive industry. The challenge of resolving this dispute is immense. The longer this trade war continues, the harder it will be to find a diplomatic off-ramp. The U.S. government may face growing pressure to reconsider its tariff policies as the economic effects become more apparent. However, reversing course would require a significant political concession. Japan, too, must balance its desire to protect its automotive industry with the need to avoid escalating tensions too far. If Japan pushes too hard, it risks retaliatory measures that could affect other key sectors like technology and finance. Ultimately, this trade war highlights the dangers of protectionism in a globalized economy. The automotive industry is just one example of how interconnected economies have become. Disrupting these connections has serious risks. The world may be heading into an era of economic fragmentation, where nationalistic trade policies replace cooperation. The stakes are high, and both the US and Japan have much to lose if this dispute continues unchecked. As this trade war unfolds, it's clear that the consequences will extend far beyond cars. The global supply chains, innovation, and financial stability all hang in the balance. Only time will tell how this economic standoff will reshape the world order. If you found this video insightful, please give it a like, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment below with your thoughts on Japan's counterstrike. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.